Welcome to the first ever episode of Focal Point, the only roundtable show that features the newest voices in entertainment. Today we're here with Gwendolyn Torrence and Abbey George, and today we'll be discussing the actor's process. I'm your host, Zach Miller. So guys, to get started with one of the most generic questions on acting, when did you first get interested in becoming an actor?
You go.
Okay. I started dancing when I was 3, so it was kind of always like in the world of art. And when I was around 8, I took my first acting class and I loved it. But I always knew that I wanted to act from a really young age. And I just took classes, and from there it kind of just spiraled into majoring it in college.
Yeah, I started a little bit later, so I was always making home videos and stuff, and my mom actually was the one who told me I should start taking acting classes. So then in 10th grade, I took classes in downtown Houston, Humphrey School of Music. And from there, yeah, it spiraled into well, I don't know what else I should major in, and I'm kind of good at this, so we'll see what happens.
So when you were growing up, was there a specific actor or actress that you really recognized on TV that stood out to you and I want to model myself after that? And
Yeah, I was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean. I loved that movie so much, especially Keira Knightley, because she was so beautiful and she got to wear the pretty dresses, and it was the cute guy. And I was I want to be that, because I just thought it was the world was so much fun.
Oh, they're quality movies, yeah.
Yeah, it was also a great movie.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, because I think mine was Mary-Kate and Ashley. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't very artistically inclined as a child. I watched a lot of really bad movies, and I think I just liked the entertainment value of it, not necessarily the artistry of it. So I don't think I really started appreciating art until I was much older.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
So you guys have, with your time doing BFA acting, you've done both theater and film performances. Do you guys see yourself doing film or theater or both in the future, as a focus? Do you want to do one or the other or both?
Yeah. I think for right where I am now, I'm kind of I don't really know exactly what I want to land on, so I'm just keeping it kind of open-minded. I'm really interested in film right now. So I think that I'm kind of leaning towards that, but I also I have a theater background. That's what I've been studying and training here. And I'm also still interested in dance, and movement-based theater really interests me too. It's but right now I kind of don't really know where it's gonna take me.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
I would say I'm definitely more interested in film and TV right now. I think my type lends itself well
same.
to that. I think, I don't know, there's the way we've been talking about it is theater actors, they're more character actors, and if you look like people that are in films and TV, you might as well try that out, because it makes more money, and because, I don't know, while you're in your youth still, and I feel there's this limited amount of time you can get started in film and TV, and when you're needed and wanted by the industry,
That's when you should.
and that's while I still look young, I might as well because once you turn 30, it's they don't really need you as much anymore. If you think about especially women in film and TV, it's you have this time limit. Yeah, there's a very strict window.
Yeah, they
Whereas
definitely
in
go for
theater,
those types of ages and looks for sure. So I think that's really different to choose your style. When you're doing theater or film, what is the what are the challenges from going from theater performances to film performances? How do you handle that? Because they're two drastically different types of acting. So what's that process like?
Yeah, it's definitely it's interesting, because I feel the preparation for both are two really different things. When you're doing a play, you have your entire rehearsal process to find the world of the play and find your character, and just explore the text and everything, and you have the director who's like helping you along with that, and you guys are like sharing ideas, and it's really collaborative sometimes. But but then with film, I feel like you have to have all that preparation already prepared for when you have like your first day of shooting. Like, that's already done.
Right.
And it's like, it's also, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like you're lucky if you get to rehearse with the director beforehand, or even like meet the other actors.
Yeah.
And that can pose a real challenge, especially if it's something really emotionally like sensitive or vulnerable. Like, let's say it's like a romance or something. You've never met this person you're supposed to be in love with. Like, it could be anything like that. I just find that aspect a lot more challenging. And then the technique from theater to film changes drastically. That's something we've been studying a lot this year. We were talking about this earlier, the idea of like projecting and like physically telling a story, whereas in film, the camera does the storytelling and you're there, but the conventions of the storytelling are different. So
yeah, it's told through like the editing and like the filming
and
of
sound.
it.
Yeah, there's more elements that bring out your
Right.
performance instead of just projecting
exactly
to people in front of you.
Yeah.
100%.
So like I was watching footage from the film I did, and it looks like I'm overacting, but like if you were to see it in person, it probably would have looked really like good, naturalistic, good. But like on screen, it just looks like I'm doing too much. I mean, like the movements that you might see in real life on stage, it might look really subtle, but on camera, it just looks like
picks up everything.
Yeah, the camera just picks up everything. So.
Yeah, it's like it's two very different things, which is really interesting because you have like your whole play to build up to that character arc. Like you have that whole experience every time. But then with film, you're on set and it's like rolling, and then you have to get there
Out of
that
order.
Completely
That's
out of order
really
to that emotional experience, which is like, how do you prepare yourself mentally when like with theater you can just have that natural experience?
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
You guys were telling me a little bit about the workshop with Yerma. So what characters did you play, and what was that preparation like, and what was your favorite part about doing those characters?
I played Mary, and
I played her.
Okay.
And they're sisters, and it was a really challenging play to work on.
It was really challenging.
Because it deals with women in a later stage of life, dealing with infertility and issues that we really haven't had to face yet as younger women. And so that preparation was extremely difficult because it's having to put yourself in this situation, these circumstances that are so far from your real life. And that's where like technique really had to come in, and rehearsal and commitment, I think, was like...
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like, so she's like in her late 30s, and the play itself spans like through like 10 years almost. Is it 10 years or is
maybe
it
a little longer?
Yeah. And through it, she's dealing with infertility and like marital issues. And I'm 21 in college. Like, I'm not dealing with any of those issues.
It's hard to relate
to
that.
It's hard to relate, but with your training, it's like finding experiences that can align with her emotional experiences to like get you into her life, if that makes sense. So that was a really big challenge, like trying to like
find
the container.
That's like a term people like. You have to figure out what it feels like to exist in that world, and maybe in your mind using your technique, it's not, you're obviously not going to use like the given circumstances of the play
because they're not relatable to you,
right? But if you can find something that triggers you in a similar way to the character, then you're set. And that's kind of what our training has been. It's really hard to do. I mean, everyone uses a different technique. Me and Gwen probably use different, like, I don't know.
Yeah, there are different ways that you can like get into the character, and it's just like whatever works for you. But it is hard. I mean, like it's purposely hard. Like our professors give us like plays and scenes that like are really challenging and also are like not really in our world right now, so that like it stretches and pushes us, so that when we are out in the world and like auditioning for things, it's like easier to
because we'll be auditioning for stuff that's like my age, my type, and I feel like we've been doing things that are so different from us.
So, you want that range, of course, to like get out of your comfort zone, stuff like that. So in that preparation, are there specific personalities within your characters that you try to look for? Are there like favorite types of personalities you kind of get into easier than others, or are there like how do you like to evaluate your roles and like your preferences?
I mean, I feel like it's very rare for an actor to be able to actually get to choose what kind of like it, because usually we don't write the scripts unless you're a writer, actor, producer,
right.
which is a great skill to have. But a lot of times you're acting in things that you didn't really have much of a choice in or much of a say in, but you do it because you need the job or whatever. But anyway, if I were to get the chance to choose my own character, I mean, I'm drawn towards comedy personally. I think that's the way I express myself best. And the way that I can get across, like, I mean, at the end of the day, I am trying to like get across a message, or like we all have like things that like why we were drawn to the art in the first place, or what we're trying to say as people, and I just think that's what I'm drawn to personally.
I think it's when I like get assigned a character and I read through the script, I'm more so thinking of like, okay, like what are aspects of this character that I can relate to, and how are we similar, and like how are we different, and like how can I bring myself into this character, and so I think that like I like latch onto like little things that like I can relate to, and then I try to build it off of that.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any specific like literature material or books or any like one acts, like are you constantly doing research on like acting and techniques, and like is there some pieces of literature that stand out to you to research?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot that are, and we read a lot of books and techniques in school, and honestly, I find it overwhelming because there's so many different things that like you're supposed to be doing, like this is like how you should be thinking, and this is how you should be tackling your character, and like all of these like kind of they feel like rules and like specific set things that like, okay, if you want to succeed, you have to be doing like it like this, or like if you want to like truly have a good performance and like understand and like be in this character, you should be doing this. And while it's really helpful to read all of that and like learn and know that, at some point I kind of have to just drop it, because if I get set in that mindset, I kind of like just boggles me down, if that makes sense, because it's a lot of pressure.
It's too structured.
Yeah.
I find myself drawn to structure because I feel like I'm more like type A, and I need like a set, and that's where like different actors like differ in their process and stuff. I use the practical aesthetics technique more heavily, and with that comes it's a book called Practical Handbook for the Actor. I find myself looking back on that a lot. I read the Jenna Fisher book.
That is helpful.
What's that one called? It's The Actor's Life. I think that's it, The Actor's Life.
Maybe.
That one was, I don't know, it's helpful to read like other actors' experiences.
Yes, that is true.
And like how they like struggled too, and like there's another.
Yeah, podcasts are really helpful too.
Oh yeah.
There are a lot of podcasts where actors just talk about their experiences.
Yeah, and how they got into the business.
More relatable. Yeah.
I have read this book called Acting Professionally, and it sounds like dumb, but it has like real facts and statistics about like how many working actors there are in the union every year, how many actors are insured in the union every year, and like the numbers like are like really shocking and depressing, but it's like that's stuff you need to know if you're like willingly and like consciously gonna go into this business. So I find like a lot of stuff like that helpful. We read, what was it, The Actor Prepares, Stanislavski.
Yeah.
There's so many books that you can read.
So many. Yeah.
Elena Sina's guidebook for the actor. There's like, so many people have so many different techniques and ways that they, like she was saying, that you should act. And I feel like you should read all of them, because it's like, how are you ever going to know which one works for you?
Right, yeah. You definitely find that middle ground of what works for you. Going back to preparation for your roles, what is the most beneficial advice a director could give you to embody a character? Is there like, you can tell when a director's being clear or like, or focused and giving you a good direction. What's the best advice they can give you to
I think it really depends on the project. Yeah, and in some projects I feel like I need the director to be a little bit more hands-on, like with theater. But then on film, sometimes it's just like a word or two before you start shooting that can really make a difference. But I think a level of communication and trust is like vital, because when I've been on projects and I don't feel like understood, or like they necessarily like understand what my challenges are doing my job, that's where we run into issues, because actors, we have to go through hoops to like do our jobs. And like especially on set, I mean, you're like doing this most like unnatural thing in front of like a dozen people who don't know you, and you're being asked to do this emotionally taxing scene, stuff like that. It's just like, if a director can show that there's a level of trust, I don't know, I think that's most important.
Yeah, I think it's like this balance of like letting the actor do their work and then also guiding them. And I think that like a good director knows when to do that, like knows when to just let the person do their thing, or when they need help and guidance with the character or the scene. And it is hard when you're like working on a project and the director's mentality is like, I just want to see what they have and the world that they can create, and then just kind of like letting the actors do their thing with no guidance is just as difficult as a director who is overly like micromanaging your job and like what you're supposed to be doing in the scene. Because it's kind of like restricting.
Equally as frustrating.
Yeah. So when you're going over your scripts, do you particularly take notes on like motivations and emotions and beats, like things that stand out to you? Is that another part of your preparation process? For sure,
and that's like the first thing I always do is like read through the script a couple times, and then like go through, mark important like things that like stick out to me, the beats. Like
I always do the lists. Everything everyone says about you, what your character says about yourself, the stage directions that involve your character.
Yeah, there's an analysis. There's like this whole analysis that we're given that you fill out for each like role that you get, and it's really like helpful.
It's like a baseline, but then obviously different things help other actors. Like we have a friend who like writes like a 4-page backstory, and that really helps them. But like. Yeah, like I'll go through, mark my script. It really, again, it depends on the project. I find myself like going through marking beats, actions, tactics on this script, but on this script, I'll go through and write the thoughts before each line, or thoughts after what the other person says, or something like that. So
yeah, it just kind of depends on the project, I guess.
Do you find yourself coming across those situations where another actor, like your co-partner in a scene, is a little out of sync and it kind of throws you, and they're playing an emotion wrong according to the director's perspective? Is that challenging for you to counter that and balance that out?
I don't think it has to do as much with like the director's perspective as much as it has to do with just like being present and connected with your scene partner. I find it mostly with people like who are less experienced actors, and that just comes with like more training. But like if I look in someone's eyes and see that they're not in this room with me, there's no way I can begin to affect them and as a result be affected by them, by their behaviors.
So. It's hard, I mean, because you have the scene that you're doing, then you have the director, and you have your own opinion of the scene, and their opinion of the scene, and the director's opinion of the scene. And then it's like, the best case is when you have a partner who's like willing to do whatever in the scene and let it be an organic experience every time. But then you also get scene partners who are like, okay, like this is my vision of the scene, and then this is how I'm going to execute it every time. And then it's like that struggle of like, okay, well if this is your idea, then like I can never like actually begin to affect you or like like really like work at my objective, because at the end of the day your objective is to try to like get an effect out of that person.
It's like the idea of like being open and willing to let go of your idea of the scene so that you can meet each other in the middle and like be willing to play and explore and then together find the scene. Because there's no way you can find the scene by yourself.
Yeah. If you go in with like your idea of it, it's not ever going to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You said something about finding the scene, like you can't find it by yourself. So is it important for a director to have multiple discussions of the character to better understand the role prior to obviously giving the production a go? So is that important to have those one-on-one discussions with a director?
I personally, I think that a good director will let you come in with what you thought the idea of the scene was, or of your character was, and then work with you from there. And not necessarily scrapping what you brought in, but like it's a collaboration. And if it's just one person's idea and another person's idea, it's the same thing. The relationship between actor and actor is like almost the same between actor and director in terms of finding the scene, creating the character.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's like at the end of the day, it's you can have like a vision of how you want the play to be and like the characters, but then when you get in a room and the actors start to actually work on the scene and work on the play, it's like a whole different thing because you're bringing yourself into the character, so it's your version of the character,
Right.
and so it's always going to be like different
from what. So even when a casting occurs, they might see someone, oh, that's exactly how I imagined them in my head. You get cast, you come onto set. Well, what you bring personally, I mean, everyone's personality is going to come through that character.
Right.
It's always going to be unique to you.
Yeah.
And it's working from there and like realizing and like really valuing that individuality.
Yeah.
And uniqueness.
Yeah.
There's a quote from Jack Nicholson, and he said, kind of what we're going off of now, he says, if you get an impulse for a scene, no matter how wrong it seems, follow that impulse. It might be something, and if it ain't, take two. So we're kind of saying, like, is it okay to follow those impulses sometimes, even though they might contradict those talks before? Like, is that a risk worth taking in that respect?
Yeah, I think so.
I usually your first impulse is usually always right. And I think the interesting thing is, like, if you're rehearsing a scene, let's say you go with your first impulse and then you keep rehearsing and you venture away from that impulse, but at the end of the day you're always trying to get back to what you first found and like recreate that not recreate, but like find that organically again.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's like, I don't know, I feel like I always kind of trust, like, when I read a scene, like when I think like, oh, I see this, that's my first impulse, I'm going to trust that. And it's usually always the best choice for me.
Yeah. I also think that it's like going again with like your idea of the scene. Like I think that if you have an impulse to do something and you squash it, then it's kind of like you're just boxing yourself into what you think the scene should be,
or what you think other people want
it to be, and it's not necessarily right. So I think that like always following your impulse, because it allows for an organic experience. And like, okay, let's say it doesn't go right that first time, it might spark something else in that other either scene partner, or give the director an idea of how the scene should go.
Or like if you go with your second impulse, that's the impulse everyone's gonna choose.
Right. It's, and then if you go,
yourself. And if you go into an audition room using your second impulse, you're gonna do exactly what 800 other people just did before you. You know.
Yeah.
So like if you go with your first impulse, it's always gonna be you.
So also going off of what you're saying, during the audition process, are there specific ways that you guys try and choose to stand out from those easy, well, not easy, but you know people are going to go in there with a similar interpretation. Are there ways to do that a different way?
Right. So we've been warned, like, okay, like you go into audition room and you try to like showcase yourself, and some people will choose a really like bold like tactic, and then will kind of like really impress the director, and then they'll get into the rehearsal process if they get cast. And then it's like, okay, well, what else can you do? And sometimes it's like, oh, if you have that trick and you know it'll get you cast, is it sustainable? And so when I go into an audition, I'm not like, okay, how can I impress them? I'm always thinking about like, okay, like I still want to do this authentically. Like I still want to like do the story justice. And I think that like it's, in the long run, I think it's smarter than like going in and just kind of like showcasing your best quality, if that makes
or like
sense.
doing something bold just for the sake
Just
of
for the
standing
sake of
out.
doing
Do
it.
it.
Yeah.
I think that's actually something really difficult to manage. I think like being true to your to yourself and your analysis of the scene, but also thinking outside of the box.
Right.
So like when you're analyzing the scene, if you've had time to, sometimes you get 2 hours before and you're looking at the script, or like 30 minutes before you go in. But if you have time thinking, okay, is this true to me? But also maybe this might be a different choice. I don't know. That's something that's like, that's hard to manage. And it's just like an interesting balance that you kind of have to like keep in check for yourself.
Right. And I think it'll get easier in time. Like we haven't like
do it.
started auditioning yet. So it's kind of hard for me to say like point blank.
Okay. Yeah. But you try and like incorporate those different techniques and different like being true to yourself, but also like it's a hard middle ground to find.
And I don't think anyone can tell you like how to do that exactly. That's something each person.
It's interesting because auditioning isn't really. It's like it's a whole different aspect of acting.
Of the business.
Because like a lot of people have issues with the fact that like when you're auditioning, it's just a monologue in front of like a couple people sitting down, like a cold read. It's not the best way to showcase your abilities to begin with. It's just a setup that we have.
Another quote by Uta Hagen in respect for acting says, talent is an amalgam of high sensitivity, easy vulnerability, high sensory equipment, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting intensely, a vivid imagination as well as a grip on reality, the desire to communicate one's own experience and sensations to make oneself heard and seen. So do you find yourself bringing in these real life experiences like to a role, like, you know, if you go to New York and you experience the setting of it and you're hearing the sounds of New York and like this background and you're seeing all these people, like that could put you in a headspace maybe, and like how does that inspire you guys for your work, like going to places and seeing different experiences?
Everyone has their own technique. Again, it kind of keeps going back to that. But like Uta Hagen comes from like the branch of like Stanislavski, and like that idea is like every sensory experience can inform your character and your scene. And individually, I think for me, sight and hearing are ones that trigger me more personally. I don't really use smell that often. Or touch, to even be honest. I mean, I should probably. But like there are things that like trigger you, and that just like comes from like how you grew up, or like you as a person, or like what triggered you as a child, or like I don't know. So I know that there are people who are like, oh, if I have a scene that's in the park, I'm gonna go spend like a few hours in the park, see what it's like. It's like that might work for some people, but other people might be like, well, dude, it's acting, you know, like you can. I don't know. There's like a balance.
I think that it's for sure a balance, and I think it's like it also kind of differs from each project, and like whatever gets you into the world. Like if you're struggling to like, if you're struggling with the character and you're struggling with the scene,
tap into it.
It's like sometimes like you need those extra elements to kind of help you get into the world, and
sometimes you need more help.
And
that's when you would like go like hardcore, like what does my character eat for breakfast, or, like stuff like that that maybe I wouldn't use if it was a character that I felt was very similar to myself.
So you guys have gone through 4 years now of education with acting in the BFA program. How has this education given you a chance to grow? How would you say, like, has this helped your acting careers, and like what is the biggest takeaway from this as a student?
The biggest takeaway.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I think to be honest, the acting training that I have received has obviously helped me with technique as an actor, but I think more so I feel like I've become more, I have a clearer picture of what I want to do with my art and what kind of an artist I want to be and the kind of work I want to be producing. And that just kind of goes along with like each person's philosophy, like what message are you trying to get across? And everyone must have their own, or else why would you come into this business at all? And it's also inspired me to become a well-rounded artist. Within the past year, I've started writing a lot more. I feel like a lot of actors get frustrated with waiting for roles that they feel like they want, like stories they want to be telling.
Right.
And it's like, why, or like actors get into the other side of like production, like producing or directing themselves because they're just so fed up with like being told what to do or I don't know, stuff like that. So I think I've been inspired to become more of a Renaissance man and like that aspect, like writing, figuring out, like I've taken a lot of film classes and stuff like that. Or just like film history in general.
Yeah.
Like educating myself, the history of acting, the history of film. Those are things I didn't even think about 4 years ago that inform my acting and my artistry.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that I wanted to act, but it was like this mentality of like, oh, this is really fun and this is something that I really love and I connect with. And then I got into college and I found this like whole other respect for artists and actors in general because it really is such a hard thing to do because it's like it's opening yourself up and being as emotional and as like not even like emotional as dramatic but being like emotionally open and available,
like an exposed
and,
nerve.
Yeah, you're literally an exposed nerve and it's like it's not for you, it's to tell this story and to do the character and the person justice. And so yeah, and I just have like a deeper respect for this art and this business and
just going off of that because at the same time you have to have like insanely thick skin.
Yeah.
So it's like the catch-22 of being like this vulnerable exposed nerve while simultaneously being
observed and watched
and criticized and like I mean there's so many fucked up parts of the business like you need to lose weight, come in with a push-up bra, please, or like just like
hair and makeup ready to all interviews.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't know, it's hard, and that's why I think that it's important that our generation of artists are coming out ready to change the conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree.
In every creative field, you have to keep learning to stay at the top. So what do you guys do to keep learning and how do you continue to work on your craft? I know we talked about like literature and some other techniques and risks you guys like to take, but what do you guys keep doing to stay like inept or not inept but capable to keep doing work and stuff like that?
I think this is what I really love about acting, and I think it's very different from like from dance, where it's like, okay, if you're in a piece and you can't get this move right, okay, you have to really work at it to get this move right. But if I'm in acting and I'm like struggling with this character or this play, and it's not like working, then maybe it's like it's not my time, and I'm not there, I'm not ready yet. And acting's really great because you continue to learn and you continue to grow, and some things may not be right for you in this moment, but maybe in like 5 years after you've had different life experiences and different things happen to you, okay, now finally I can get into this character and like understand this experience. And with that, it's just the fact that like you're constantly learning and constantly growing, and like you have to be open, like when you're in a rehearsal process, like listening to the director and like, okay, I may not relate or like even agree with how you're doing this, but I'm still gonna learn from you and like your perspective. And it goes for like your other cast members, your ensemble, like listening and like learning and just always kind of like always like grabbing and taking from different experiences, and, like putting it in your back pocket for later.
Yeah, like the great thing about acting is that it's a never-ending endeavor.
Yeah.
Like literally till you die, you will never be a master at it.
Yeah.
Like you can say Meryl Streep is a master, and she is, but if you would ask her, she'd probably tell you that she's still discovering and learning about her own craft.
Yeah.
Right.
And like I think that's what's so cool, but also like terrifying about acting is that like if I were to become a doctor and go to like medical school and like do all these things, like I could eventually become an expert and like say that I knew everything that there is to know.
Yeah, and it's also like there's a specific path in other careers.
Sure.
Like you go to school, you get your education, you get an internship, you get a job in office, and then you work your way up. With acting, it's not like that at all.
Right.
Like
It's always changing.
even super arbitrary and random
And like
sometimes.
even if you book a feature film, that doesn't mean a year from now you'll be able to pay your rent.
Right.
Like
it's crazy.
Yeah, but like it keeps you on your toes. It's a never-ending investigation. People, after I graduate, I'm still going to be enrolled in acting classes.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's like something that you always
Right.
the
You wanna keep getting
BFA is
better,
like the very beginning, in my opinion.
This is
Like,
we're
that
like
is
the
just-
beginning of our learning process. And like with one of my acting coaches like once said like art is never finished, it's only abandoned, which is like kind of hoo-ha, but like at the same time it's like that really stuck with me because
Yeah, and it also goes to like the fact that like it's easy to feel burnt out. It's easy to feel like, okay, like maybe I should give this up and do something else, but you never know like if you quit what could have happened, because there was a story in Jenna Fisher's book. It's like the last story. I can't remember his name, but it's the guy that he played the father on The Humans, like the recently.
oh my god, and he was like old and
he was like 56,
oh my god,
right? So he had been acting for 20 years, and he thought when he was in his early 20s that he had made it. He had made his big break. He got this Broadway
he
show.
signed with like this huge agent,
and then the play went nowhere. It like got canceled after like a season or something
and
like
his
that.
agent forgot about him, and he stopped sending him out for auditions.
Right.
Wow.
So 20 years he wasn't like, he was doing things, but he wasn't like successful. He never made it, right?
Wow.
And then he hit his late 50s, early 60s, and then he booked The Humans, and it was on Broadway.
And
it was
he won an
extremely
Oscar?
successful.
Wow.
Not Oscar, a Tony. He won a Tony.
I believe so, but
Yeah.
it's like, it's also like he never gave up, and he had this like
Wow.
this drive that like kept him going, and it's like this
But like
insatiable
the idea
hunger.
that he's like almost 60 and it took him that long to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's inspiring on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, like this is kind of like
Right.
a lifelong
Journey.
marathon.
Yeah.
But also that's why I think it's so important to like have other interests, because
Sure.
if you're
Yes,
waiting
yeah.
around to make it, it's
Right.
like you're going to be depressed and give it up and become a secretary.
It's not going to be satisfying. Like the actual work of it isn't going to be satisfying.
Yes, so you have to find something that if acting isn't fulfilling you artistically, then what else can? And in some ways they'll inspire each other. And if you're inspired through your writing, then it'll come back around to your acting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's really important to like have your hobbies, and then also to
Sure.
have your community.
Oh my God,
Because if you don't have your community of like people who you can like be like, I want to do this project with you, and like
Keep
it's
you
that
inspired.
that video that we watched, that guy.
Mark Duplass?
Is it him? He was talking about like his own like his like film. Like,
Yeah. We
career.
watched this clip
Yeah.
from Mark Duplass at
Yeah.
South by Southwest, and like,
And he talks about like how like if you have this vision,
group of friends.
you have a group of friends, and like just write a script, film it on your iPhone, do whatever, and then
just like anything to
just
keep you
anything you can
creative
do.
Right. Yeah.
and like
Right.
doing what you want to do.
yeah,
Sure.
because then it becomes artistically fulfilling, and then you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about.
And then you're
like-
happy.
Yeah, and you have your other people supporting you, and you support each other, which I think is really.
Oh, it's very important, absolutely, to keep going with that. The teens are over. It is 2020 now. So with the decade finally coming to a close, which one of your favorite performances stand out to you guys? Is there a movie or a theater show that was really something else that
Leonardo
was cool.
DiCaprio when he got mauled by that bear.
Yo.
That was pretty crazy, yeah.
No, I always go back to, okay, I was thinking about this earlier and I was like, okay, wow, all these people are like my type. Maybe that's why I'm like, love their performances, but like, Kirsten Dunst in Marie Antoinette. I love
that's such a good
like
movie.
Sofia Coppola. I just, I don't know, I thought, I watched that movie like 4 times a year just to like go back to it. Saoirse Ronan and Lady Bird.
Yeah.
What else?
Florence Pugh. I think
Oh
that
my
she
God.
is phenomenal and
Transformational.
and she actually has like her whole other like she has her 2 movies that have just recently come out. But she's actually been on amazing projects that I really need to watch because she's had like a really good steady career and right now she's blown up for sure. But she'd already been really successful.
Which project in particular was something
she
you liked?
I think it was Macbeth. I think she was Lady Macbeth in a recent movie.
Okay.
And she also the roles that she tackles are really interesting. There was this one movie she did with the girl from Game of Thrones, Maisie Williams. Is that her name? Yeah, where she plays like a teenager battling mental illness and kind of like going through a psychotic break, I think is what it is. But I need to like watch the movies because she's really phenomenal and I find her really inspiring.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard to like go back and think about like specific standout performances.
Yeah, these are people like recently.
Yeah, because I feel like we're constantly being inspired by different performances.
Yeah.
Like last year, The Favorite. That like I couldn't stop thinking about like Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
What else? There's just so much each year.
Many,
you're just like,
Fleabag. I think Phoebe.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Didn't she wrote it?
She
wrote
yeah,
it. Like
she
that,
did.
knowing that, watching that show, it's like
she was inspiring too because she started. It was like she was really frustrated with the fact that she wasn't like landing anything and the roles she was getting weren't fulfilling because she's really specific. So she created this one act and then it kind of like blossomed from there.
Yeah,
oh my God,
really
Broad
talented.
City.
Broad City. Yes,
There's just all these
Broad
like
City.
females that are like writing their own stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I find that inspiring for sure.
Which actor or actress do you see being a pillar of motion pictures for the next couple of years? So like a young, up and coming.
Timothy Chalamet is here to stay.
He's
There's
good.
just some people that just like blow up and will never go away.
Yeah, because they've latched onto him and they're gonna make him successful.
It's
I mean, he's really talented for sure.
It's interesting to bring that up because it's like some actors will like blow up and then like fall off. Like I can't think of an example. It happens every year. Yeah, or like something. It's there's no telling why that happens.
Well,
actually, there is. Like sometimes, let's say you're in like in a bad movie, and then
it just
you get pinned for that bad movie, even though it was the bad production team, the bad editing,
the bad writing,
and it's like your
career.
The script is bad, and then your career goes down the drain. That's happened to like countless actors, and it's just terrible that happens. But anyway,
I think the people that we've listed, I think that like these new and upcoming like Florence Pugh and I can't say her name.
Saoirse Ronan.
Yes,
I can never say her name either.
I know.
Yeah.
I try to avoid it. And Greta Gerwig too. Like I think that there's like Little Women was really inspiring because there were actors that are our age and like fresh and they have their own perspective and their own way of doing it.
Clearly their own like specific presence on screen.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just find that like really
the personalities
refreshing.
come through so strongly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie yet. I intend on seeing it, but I heard that it was also like the 24th adaptation of the book. So for there to be a new perspective with all those talents there, like, that's really incredible on their parts to do that.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what Greta Gerwig like has in store because
she's just starting.
Yeah, right. She's only got like a couple good ones, but like she's capable of so much.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. But all right, well, thank you guys for coming in. We appreciate talking about acting today. So,
thank you.
No problem. So be sure to be on the lookout for more roundtable discussions, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So stay creative, guys, and we'll see you next time.